But my guest today is none other than Kathleen Burkinshaw, and I am thrilled to talk with you. Kathleen, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm so happy to be on your show today. Thank you for having me.
I couldn't be more thrilled and a little nervous to talk to you. I've been doing research all week and wondering how am I going to ask questions about a subject that's just so big. But we'll get through it the best we possibly can. I'm mostly just going to let you do the talking, and that will be the easy way to do things, I think. So esteemed audience knows I never summarize anyone's book or anyone's background. So the best place to start is usually if you would give esteemed audience kind of an overview of your background, and we'll go from there.
I'd be happy to. Well, I am a Japanese American author, and I didn't start out writing books. Actually, of course, when I was younger, I did a lot of poems, a lot of cards, but I loved blue book exams in college, which everybody thought I was weird because of that, but I just loved to write. However, my job really that I got into was healthcare management, and I did negotiating contracts between physicians and hospitals, and I set up physician hospital organizations. So most of it was like business contract writing. And then it kind of turned into having to do writing because of my health. And I guess you want me to just kind of jettison right into that? Okay. Well, first, I guess I should tell you about the book. Sorry. The Last Cherry Blossom is based on a young girl's life in Hiroshima during World War II. And it's based on my mother's experiences. She was 12 when the bomb was dropped. And so in the book, you kind of get a feel for life during that time, and as well as family life and the propaganda that was given to their own people in Japan, as well as seeing, you know, the horror of August 6th through her 12-year-old eyes as well. And the way that the book kind of came about was really more so of, I started speaking about my mother's experience first, but it wasn't for a long time. My daughter was in 7th grade, so that was about 10 years now. And she came home from school very upset. And she said, you know, we just finished World War II, and I overheard some kids talking about that cool mushroom cloud. Can you go and talk to them about the people under that, like grandma? And I remember calling my mom that day because I felt she was going to say no. She's very private and she never talked about it. And in fact, I was 11 when I found out she was actually from Hiroshima. She always said she was from Tokyo. And I remember growing up that she'd have these horrible nightmares throughout the year, and especially in August. And when I was 11, I happened to remember the summer before, August was very bad with nightmares as well. And so I kind of just kept asking her if something happened then. And finally, she told me that she was actually born in Hiroshima and not Tokyo, but she lost her family and her home to the atomic bombing that day. So after that, she didn't want to tell me much more. It was still painful for her then. And then she said, don't say anything to anyone. So at 11, I really didn't know a lot about the atomic bombing until we started to read Hiroshima by John Hersey. That was really my first idea of what she might have gone through. And I just remember being in my room and being horrified and so upset that some of that she might have seen. And I remember going to her, she didn't even look at the book. And she just said to me, well, no words can truly explain what happened. And don't tell your teacher I was there because I can't go in and speak about it. So again, nothing was really done with that until I was 31. I got very sick and I was in the hospital for over a month. So when I came home, I needed help taking care of myself, and my daughter was 4 then, and my husband worked during the day, so my parents would come over. And I was diagnosed with reflex sympathetic dystrophy, which is a neurological chronic progressive pain disease that affects your immune system as well as your sympathetic nervous system. And my physicians, when they first diagnosed me, and they also said that it's because partly of my immune system deficiency because of the radiation my mother was exposed to during the atomic bombing. And at that point, I had to stop my career of what I was doing. I wasn't sure how I could be, how much of a good mother I could be if I wouldn't be able to walk or use my hands. And I became very depressed and despondent. And my mother then started to talk to me about August 6th and the days afterwards. And she told me that she wanted me to know this because she wanted to commit suicide. That was her plan after she lost everyone. But she was so glad that she didn't do it because she had me. And then she had my daughter, Sarah. And I had that same samurai blood flowing through me. And I'd find that strength somehow to make a new life. So by getting sick, that was one of the ways that I actually found out more of what happened to her. And it was kind of like, I think it's a typical mom thing. You want to do that to help your child, but at the same time, I could help her so she could finally talk about what happened. And then life kind of gets in the way. And so nothing really more was done with that until that day that I'm, calling my mom. And she actually said yes. And that was surprising to me. But what really made her think about it was that the kids in her class, they'd all be around the same age she was, because she was 12. And she figured, well, maybe they'll understand or relate to me better about my life, of what I was doing. And they're all going to be voters. So she said, this way they'll walk away knowing nuclear weapons, should never be used on anyone again. And so I went into the class and I talked to them. And I remember being invited then the following year to the new 7th graders, and other schools in the Charlotte area heard about it and had me speak. And a couple of teachers approached me asking, do you have anything we could use in the classroom? Because we don't really have anything on the Pacific side. And I had written stuff down just so my daughter would have it someday, for the history. And I remember calling my mom, and she was just so surprised. Her first thing was, why would they want to know about a little girl in Hiroshima? And it was just interesting that that's what her first thought was. And a few days later, she sent me this package, and it was a copy of a picture, which is this one over here. That is a picture that always had a special place of honor in my home. And it's of her and her papa. And it's special for quite a few reasons. The first one is she only had 7 pictures from her childhood. They were all of her between the ages of 3 and 5. They were at another home, so they weren't damaged by the bombing, but anything older than 5 was destroyed with her house that day. So, but this one especially is her papa was her favorite person in the whole world. And I could tell by the way she'd talk about what he did with her and the memories that he loved her a lot too. And so I decided at that point that it would be a book that wouldn't start with the atomic bombing, but it would start months before, because I felt that one, I wanted to show what she had so you can understand the loss, but more importantly, I felt that readers needed to know the culture and the mindset of that time period, because it was, their way of looking at leaders was very different from the United States, the Allies. And the way of life at that point was, they had invaded Manchuria in 1931. My mom was born in 32. And so she only had war as the background to her life. So by the time 45 came around, the soldiers that used to be in this strong military port in Hiroshima, they were mostly deployed out into the Pacific. So there weren't many left. There weren't many men left. It was mostly older people and children. But I also, in order to show what was different for them, I just wanted to show too what they had in common. I mean, the children, my mom would talk about how, she worried about her family and her friends. What might happen? Would they get a bomb dropped on them? Would they survive it? And then wished for peace, and I feel that all the Allied children, that was their thoughts, that was their wishes and hopes and worries. So I wanted to show that there was that commonality that was there, because I felt that, in the textbooks, a lot of times, if we're lucky, it's a 2-paragraph thing. And it usually is, we dropped the atomic bombs and we won the war. And to me, that is just so disrespecting to all those people that died as a result of that, to just dismiss it as a way to end the war. I wanted them to get a better feeling of what happened, so that it might gain more empathy towards it. It would give you more of an emotional impact than just those 2 paragraphs and that famous mushroom cloud picture that they usually include with that. So I really had hoped that children could get that, but also the middle schoolers, the high schoolers, whoever does read it, my hope too was to show them that even today, even though it's 76 years later, it'll show you that, the ones that we feel don't belong, don't look like us, are our enemies, they're not really that different from us. I mean, we all have hearts, we all have emotions, we have that common bond as human beings. And that's mostly what I hope that this brings about, as well as, you know, to no more use of nuclear weapons. But I really wanted that to be the message too, because I feel if you're going to talk about not having nuclear weapons, you need to talk about why. You need to talk about this is what we know happens, and now we know it can be so much worse. And so that's what kind of pushes me with the book and with my mother's message for that. I might have gone off track, and I'm really sorry. I might have veered a little
You're
bit.
doing fantastic. If I'm esteemed audience, I'm annoyed that I'm also on the show. You're doing great.
Oh, thank you.
But I did, well, I've got a bunch of questions for you. I should point out, if esteemed audience, if you're listening to us the day this comes out, it's August 7th. So we're one day past the 76th anniversary. If you're listening to us later, welcome. We're glad you found us. Whenever you made time for us is fantastic. And so we're talking, is it fair to say that you're on a mission to spread awareness, to do your part to prevent this from happening again?
Yes, I definitely am. That has been my new mission that I can do. In between my illness, that is my hope, to continue with this along the way.